Hi, I'm Beth. I'm parent carer to three children. I have a 20-year-old who has complex medical needs, autism, Turner syndrome, a variety of things going on, learning disabilities. I have a 12-year-old who's autistic and has anxiety disorder. She's also got long COVID, which has added a nice little variant there. And I have a 3-year-old who's just a typical crazy little 3-year-old. What I found navigating the sort of school system, and in particular the EHCP system, which was a statement of educational needs when I first started out for my eldest. And we had, it was very difficult. It was very different. Sorry, she was maybe about 2 in nursery and would stay like 5-10 minutes. She had massive sort of separation anxiety. And I used to stand outside the nursery with a timer and then come back in and get her. And she had a statement for one-to-one support from literally about 2 months after she started at nursery. It was very, very quick, very easy process. I could not understand for the life of me how parents were, so frustrated and confused. It really baffled me because I was like, well, that was really easy. And then my middle child she started school, and it became quite obvious that, wasn't quite entirely sure what was going on, but we knew there was something. We first thought it was sort of young carer typical behaviour because she was trying to look after everybody else in the class. And then we sort of figured out that actually it was task avoidance. So she was finding the work a challenge, and so she would avoid it. We managed to get, well, at the time we couldn't get an educational psychologist in because it was a 2-year wait via the local authority. And that sort of begun the challenge there. We had a Senko that was only part-time in the school, and that just does not work. You need to have a Senko there full-time. You've got 100 odd kids in a school of 400 that have SEN, you need a full-time Senko. So that added another sort of barrier to getting the EHCP process started. And we eventually got to the stage where the school, I think, got fed up with me badgering, have you got any EP, and have you got an EP? And they paid for an educational psychologist to come in for a certain amount of pupils that they knew these need support now. There's no way they can wait 2 years. And they highlighted, that she had dyslexia, that she had difficulties with auditory processing, she had difficulties sensory processing, she had difficulties sort of making friendships and things like that. So she was on the waiting list at that point for CAMHS anyway, because she was so anxious. She was school refusing. We hadn't realised at the time that she was also being bullied, and that because she had told an adult in the school, she felt she'd done the right thing and ticked it off. Very, very literal. And so it wasn't until she literally came home one day and just broke down. And I mean, her blood pressure was through the roof. She was straight, and I was like, what am I to do with this child? That she got through to see CAMHS, and they initially thought ADHD, and it was actually school that backed me there. I was like, she does not have a child with ADHD. She is not ADHD, 100% not. And that then started the whole of the battle, because ADHD, they're happier to diagnose, is what it feels like, because it's like, give them some pills, send them on the way. And I was just like, no, you're not spending an hour with my child and telling me that's her diagnosis, because I don't believe it. And school backed and said, there is no way that child has ADHD. She's so conforming in school that really we actually see a lot of autistic traits. And that sort of started that process of, took a very long time. I pushed and pushed and pushed for the EHCP. It was long, very long. And I think you end up being very relentless, because if you don't chase and chase and chase, you just sit there waiting, constantly just waiting for them. And if you don't chase it actively, you're going to wait forever. And then your child's without support. And so I think between myself and school chasing it kind of got pushed up the ladder, because I'm very vocal. And of course, the more you can shout and the more you can challenge them on where they're going wrong, and actually you're about to go over your time process, so can we, pull this back? And so she got that eventually put in place, and that made a big difference to her sort of day to day. But even sort of the challenges that I see now, I support a lot of parents, and even just in the last few weeks, the amount of Senkos that are saying things like, we have our own policy here, so I prioritise who goes through for an EHCP. Well, I'm sorry, because that means then if my child's been on the waiting list and she has sort of low to middle sort of needs, so she's further down your priority list, and another child comes to school with higher needs, they're automatically going to go over, and that's just not the law. So it's every day it's a battle. I think the funding hasn't helped, because funding's being cut left, right and centre. And what really riles me is, where's the uproar? All these children that are without education, that are without support and education, and yet when COVID's lockdown became a thing and all children were out of education, there was massive media uproar. And yet across the country, there's hundreds of thousands of children that are without a placement, that are without any support in class, that are excluded because they don't have support in class, that are told they have to medicate to come into class. And you think, where's the uproar for that? Why does nobody care? Because really, just because your child has an additional need doesn't mean they can't achieve, doesn't mean they can't nourish, they can't flourish, they can't sort of move on. They all can do what they set out to do. And if that's not going to be appreciated by society, what kind of society are we growing? I think my biggest wish list for schools would be actual inclusion and acceptance of everybody's different. We are all different. Even the children that don't have additional needs, we're still all different. No teacher's the same, so why should children be the same? And to actually just allow them. I know inclusion has become such a buzzword, and we're a fully inclusive school. Okay, you're a fully inclusive school, but you've just told me that you have the same high expectations for every child. How does that work? And they don't have, I would really love to go around every single school and give them training on the Equalities Act and what a reasonable adjustment actually looks like, because they don't seem to know what that is until a parent has to come in and say, so what reasonable adjustments were in place when they had the sanction for their ADHD behaviour that you've just gave them an hour's attention for because they're fidgeting? Let them fidget. If whatever it takes. I would just wish that all teachers, because I have met some amazing teachers through the years, some really, really amazing teachers. And I think there's that, the difference is the teachers that get that if you allow a child to stim, to fidget, to do what they need to do to concentrate, and the child knows best what they need to concentrate, you will get so much more out of them on a learning basis than if you are forcing them to sit still, don't fidget, don't play with your hair, don't pull your nails, you're not going to get the same level of concentration at a child, and they're not going to take anything in. They're going to come out that class, what did you learn? I don't know, I was focusing on holding it all together. And that's, I think, what they miss. I don't quite think they understand the impact that stopping them from having those movements actually has on them at that time, right in that moment, and later, because when you're forcing them to hold it all in, that's got to come out at some point. And then the parent sees it at home, and you get the whole, well, they don't act like that in my classroom. No, that's because you don't allow them to act like that, because you will sanction them, because you will draw attention to them, you will pull them out. And the last thing they want is to be singled out. Just let them be. And where parents are concerned, God, where would I start? It's the patronising, it's the parent blaming, it's the parent shaming, it's, well, you just want everything with your golden ticket, with your EHCP, and you're asking for too much. No, you are a mainstream school. Yes, I get that, because my child is capable of being in a mainstream school with support. She has an EHCP, yes, and you get funding for that EHCP. What are you using it on? And if you can't break it down for me, then you're not using it as you should be. Simple as that. And it's just, if they would work with parents, I know my value as a parent. I know I am an expert in my child, not everybody's child, and my child. I know my child inside out. All parents know their children. We live with them day in and day out. We make adjustments where we don't even notice that we make adjustments. We just do it automatically because we know our children. Speak to us, listen to us, take it on board. I wish every school had some kind of a sort of parent carer panel that they could just run things by, these silly policies, blanket policies and things. I don't mean your governing boards, because that's all corrupt anyway. It's more, have something real, have something that parents will engage with, and the parents that want to help you will be an absolute source of brilliance for you, because at the end of the day, they don't just want to change things for their child. They want to change things for all the children coming after them. They don't want to have another child go through what's brought them to your door. So if I've had a really bad experience and I'm coming to you and saying, no, that has to stop, I want to make sure that message goes through to everybody in the school and say it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable at all, and you need to change that practice, and here's why you need to change it. And then they don't go back to it because they've learned from it. It's not just, oh, right, okay, for that child, it's for every child. And a lot of the time, actually, the adjustments that they put in place in the classroom, even just like this, your fidgets and things like that, a lot of children that don't have additional needs, or that have mental health things, or that just are a bit stressy, and you're at that point where you just need to do something, give them a fidget, let them be, let them do what works for them, let them work it out, let them be an individual, which is surely what we want to be teaching them: independence and making your own choices, because that's what you'll do in adulthood. It's not all about preparing for a life of conformity. Who in an adulthood conforms? You do what you want to do, and you do what's right for you. So why are we teaching in secondary schools and things that you have to be this, and you can't go outside the lines, otherwise it's wrong and you have to be sanctioned? They need to listen, and they need to learn, and they need to take action and change it. And even if it's only one school, that will start a ripple, because if one school's doing it, the next school can see the model of it and say, oh, well, actually that's working. But it's just, where do you start to get that to happen?